Hey guys, Jordan here, and today I'd like to talk a little bit about comics with you. Specifically, I'd like to talk about the comic series Herc. Well, DC has been putting out all the new issue number ones recently. That's kind of been the big talk. I'm sure you've heard about it. But I'd say about 7 months ago or so, Marvel actually put out number ones, restarting some series. Two of them that I picked up number ones for and was really impressed by were Moon Knight and Herc. And Moon Knight is actually, I think, one of the best series that's being put out right now, even if it is being put out kind of slowly. So if you aren't reading that, I'd say you should read that. And when Herc first came out, I felt the same way about this series. Issues number 1 and 2 were great. Just a little background to catch you up if you aren't too familiar with Herc. That's Hercules. He's one of the lesser-known strongmen in the Marvel Universe. But you probably heard of him, son of Zeus, half god, really strong, did a bunch of feats. So, in the previous storyline, before this new Herc series got put out, Herc actually had to sacrifice all his godlike powers in order to save the world. So he starts out this series as just like a really strong, buff guy with thousands of years of fighting experience, which in my opinion is pretty badass. And then he also took some stuff from Olympus before he came down to hang out with all the mortals. Like he has a shield that turns people into stone and a sword that cuts through anything. Like these are actual weapons from mythology, I believe. I forget the names of them right now. But it's real interesting. The series started out, issues 1 and 2. I actually don't have those issues out right now because I liked them so much. I bagged and boarded them and put them in my collection right away after I read them. Those were really good, kind of just exploring Herc's mentality as he leaves Olympus, because he's used to being a god. He's not used to being down with the mortals and everything. So if you're familiar with Hercules, the character, he's always been kind of arrogant. And, that's kind of like with Thor also. That's just kind of the god complex there, because they're gods. But you just kind of see how Herc is dealing with that. And he's trying to find purpose in these first couple of issues. So he goes to the Bronx and he starts kind of a one-man fight on gangs, just kind of reminiscent of the early Luke Cage stuff, but, better written and everything. And the art was great, and I really liked the series. It started off so strong because Herc is just this guy who's out there trying to find his place, and he's fighting whatever crime he can fight. And it's less of the whole, like, Marvel's gotten really big on these earth-shattering events, so it was kind of a nice change of pace just to see this whole thing and to kind of really develop a character more who's been around for a long time but has never really been that popular. It was really nice to see the character development that was starting to happen in these first couple of issues, as Herc was trying to find meaning with his life by kind of becoming the guardian of the Bronx, and also seeing what his new limitations were and how he was finding them, since he didn't have his god powers and super strength anymore. So then after issue 2, things got a little different, and Marvel started the Fear Itself storyline that was just kind of all-encompassing, like they've done for a while now, just putting out all these big stories. And I was not a fan of how it affected Herc. Like, the big pull about Herc was just seeing him kind of in these minor conflicts and how he was dealing with it compared to the challenges that he used to face being a god. So then you can just see from the comics here, everything except this one, issue 6.1 right here, all of them have like these bigger titles on it than Herc, like Fear Itself, Herc Fear Itself, like that's from issue 3 through 6 over here. So that's issue 6, and that still has the Herc Fear Itself, and then right after it goes into Spider Island, so 7 and 8. And I don't know, I'm just not a fan of how these have affected Herc, because before, he's kind of getting the neighborhood to rally around him, and it kind of goes into this whole thing with how gods can get their powers from prayers, But then, with the fear itself, then everybody in his neighborhood is turned evil by someone, so he has to fight without hurting them. And it just goes into these weird stories. Like, they're not terrible, but I'd say they're like definitely mediocre stories. Mediocre writing, and it was just kind of to tie it into these events. Like, I mean, just looking at the covers, it's Herc, Fear Itself, Spider Island, Herc. It's not just Herc. And what this series had going for it was how they were developing Hercules. So I've just not been a fan of how this series has progressed. I like how Moon Knight has kind of stayed autonomous from all these other events for the most part, and that's what's kept that as such a solid series, I think. And I'm really hoping that they kind of move away from all this with Hercules and just move back to how it was at the beginning, just with Hercules being this guy just without powers. He's just using the weapons he has and fighting for his neighborhood. This is actually issue 6.1, so Marvel did the .1 issues to kind of try and draw new readers in. So just like providing a new starting point that wasn't issue 1. And this story was alright. Like, I liked that it wasn't tied into all these big events that are going on. But still, it wasn't as good as those first 2 issues. This one, Hermes is coming, and it's just kind of about Hermes realizing that Herc's there, trying to do the right thing. So, you know, overall, like, Herc started out with a lot of promise, and then it kind of fell into all this stuff, just Herc, Fear Itself, and Spider Island Herc. And I think it's kind of losing itself already, which is a shame because of the potential it had at the beginning. But I'm really hoping that these events kind of wrap up here quickly so it can just go back to being Herc, not Spider Island Herc or Fear Itself Herc. And just kind of really develop on the character more, because if it doesn't, then I see this being another short-lived series for him. But anyways, those are just my thoughts on this series, so let me know if you agree, disagree, what your thoughts are on it, if you've read it, or just if you have any thoughts on how the whole tie-ins with multiple series kind of hurt or help characters. But yeah, thanks for watching. If there are other series that you'd like me to talk about, let me know in the comments or send me a message. And I hope you guys enjoyed this little rant on Marvel's Herc series. And thumbs up and subscribe.